welcome again. This is the Well I Am podcast. My name is Kerry Miller, and today we're looking at anxiety and depression. The question is, why are we as a society so depressed? There is anxiety everywhere, and we're looking for happiness, and we thought, where else do we go except to peak performance coach Michael Rod. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you. Happy to be here. Excited to be here, actually.
Well, I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you.
It's quite an interesting one, in fact, because some people watching this may know me from when I was working at the radio station, rhymes with Blees Coast Radio, and the building that I was working in, you're working from the same building.
Yes, I have my offices in there.
Yes, your offices are there at the East Coast Radio building, and I've always considered myself to be an incredibly bubbly, confident, happy person.
Wonderful.
And when someone spoke of anxiety or depression, I must say I kind of shoo-shooed a little bit. Come on, you can manifest it, you can breathe through it, you can, just be grateful, gratitude, blah, blah, blah. And when I was fired, and then after being fired, obviously so comes the lack of finances, and then my boyfriend and I broke up, and so then I had to move, and I ended up living with my parents, and I experienced for my first time in my whole life true depression.
Right.
And I'm grateful that I experienced it because I never understood it.
Awesome, yeah.
Until I got that feeling of not wanting to wake up, of not wanting to eat, of not feeling anything. And then someone said to me, yeah, take a Surdep. And I started Surdep for a very short time, and it was the worst experience of my life. And I heard about you because I know that you are quite openly not a super drug pusher. And when we talk about anxiety and happiness, we have to be able to talk about it without supplementing from the drug angle.
Absolutely.
So my question to you is, why do you think we are such an anxious and unhappy, depressed generation?
Well, I just think that the main reason is what I come from what a school of thought called the responsibility rebellion. And what I mean by that is, I just think that in our society we have a lack of what we call responsibility. Although it's a single word, it's actually a double word. Responsibility.
Sure.
So,
sure.
Whatever the world throws at you, you have a choice how to respond to that. Now, I always say to people, if you're a person who is a victim, you're going to respond to that kind of situation in a way that keeps you locked in that mindset. If you're a victor, you're going to choose your response based on pulling you out of that mindset.
So either way, you're a volunteer.
So you have a choice. Between stimulus and response, there's always a gap. And in that gap, you have a choice. So from a depression point of view, I can just tell you this, my whole story is based from childhood depression. And I don't know if you'd like me to, before off air, we were talking about, why I call myself a peak performance coach.
Let's go there.
And it's got to do with my story. Actually, PEAK is actually an acronym. The letter P starts with physiology, the E is emotion, the A is action, and the K is knowledge. So I'll tell you how that whole acronym evolved. When I was a kid.
How old?
From the age of about 7.
Okay.
Through to the age of 14, I grew up in a really tough environment. I had an alcoholic, suicidal mother. I had a father who wasn't present. I had a brother who bullied me badly because that was just his way of coping, And so I got shipped off to boarding school, Maritzburg College, at a very early age of 13. And,
sure.
I was struggling. My mom used to phone me at school and say she's going to jump. And for a little kid of 13 to go through all of that was just... And so, I started to think of myself differently. I started to feel that I was different from everybody else. But more than that, I suffered deeply with depression.
Did anyone know what you were going through when your mom was phoning and you never told anyone?
You're at boarding school. And boarding school, Maritzburg College in those days was tough. Tigers don't cry.
Sure.
So I had to deal with that really all on my own. My father came from the old school, you don't show emotions. You just don't show emotion. So anyway, when I was 14... I walked into the school gym and I saw this barbell sitting there, and I grabbed this barbell and I started pulling it and training with this barbell. And suddenly, for those moments, that depression cloud just lifted.
Wow.
And I was fascinated. I put the bar down and I was like, whoa, I haven't felt like this for ages. So the next day I went back, trained again. But the challenge was for me is while I was training, that dark cloud of depression would leave. But then when I got back into normal society and more normal life at school and that, the cloud would come back. So I just spent more and more time in the gym, trying not to feel what I was feeling. By the time I was 20, obviously I'd really developed my physique because I was just training more and more and more. I thought, this is my drug. This is what I have to use to get through my life.
I hope you were doing other things other than just the curls at that point. You'd learned other exercises.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I went and I read all the magazines, read all books. I was fascinated by this, more so about what it did for me mentally. I didn't care how I looked. So anyway, I eventually left, went to the army. They used to call me Speeder, which is muscles in Afrikaans in the army. I went on officer's course and all of that, but then came out of the army, and within a couple of months, I won Junior Mr. South Africa heavyweight title.
Good grief.
But the challenge was moving from how I felt to how I looked on stage. It was a huge shift for me.
So how you felt to how you looked. Okay, so your mental space and your physical space were just worlds apart.
Totally. I couldn't, it wasn't about how I looked. Everything about my training was how it made me feel.
At this point, your mom, did she get better?
My mom was still on her path. She had an incredible constitution. She was, she also, funnily enough, was an exercise. She was the first person in this country to create a vinyl exercise record called "Come Slim with Me" in the 1970s.
No.
Yeah, and so she actually
Come Slim with Me.
Come Slim with Me. It was a hit in this country. In fact, she bought so many ambulances for the hospitals in Maritzburg at the time with the proceeds, because we were sort of like an upper middle class family. We didn't need the money, so she donated that money. So that was quite interesting. By the way, my sister Jenny, we've all, well, the three of us, and now Adeline, my other sister, but Jenny was Princess Diana's trainer right up until her death for the 9 years before that.
Really?
Yeah, my sister Jenny Rivets. So we kind of were all in this sort of fitness.
I've never pictured Princess Di doing like a leg curl or something. That's not something I've ever put together.
You know that one scene where Princess Diana was filmed? There was this thing where she was filmed in the gym, and it was a big outrage.
Oh.
Yeah, it was secretly filmed. Remember there was all that in the.
Wait, was it your sister who did the secret
filming?
filming?
No, my sister was next to her in those pictures.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so it was quite interesting. Anyway, Princess Diana, Jen is a big story, and she's gone on to do a lot. My sister Jen, but I digress a bit about my story on the peak stuff. But when I was in my 20s, I just thought, okay, I was training so much because I just wanted to feel this way. So I started developing a little bit of a one-dimensional life.
Okay, well, understandable.
Yeah, bodybuilding and trying to shift out of this feel and into how I looked. And the next thing is I found myself, I wanted to go and study overseas now, because obviously this physiology thing was a big thing in my life. And so I made my way over to America, also to try and escape my mindset in South Africa. But what I didn't realize is that
your mind goes with you.
You take your bags with you wherever you go,
Yeah, big time.
So I went over there and I studied in America. I did 4 years there in physiology. And I came back to South Africa, and I was probably the first personal trainer in this country. In fact, I lectured personal trainers in this country.
Really?
I went to Santon Health and Racket, and I said to them, this is what I want to do. I've just arrived back from America. I want to do personal training. And the manager looked at me and said, people won't pay you for that.
Sure.
So I said to him, okay. So then I came back down to Durban, and I was literally the first trainer at Lelusa Health and Racket.
No ways.
Yeah. So anyway, I developed the industry. I lectured the industry. I mean, many, many, many people still come up to me and say, hey, you know what, you changed my life with those lectures all those years ago. But I was still living that one-dimensional life. I met a girl. I got married to her. She had a child that unfortunately was mentally, not in a good space. And that marriage didn't work, mainly because of me. I was just this one.
Well, you mentally weren't there.
I was just one-dimensional. It's just about... It was a bad time. Then I became the CEO of the Princess Charlene of Monaco Foundation in 2010. And I had placed top 10 in the world in my bodybuilding story in 2002, I think. And in that time, I had just gone on this wild man's search for answers about how I could move out of this space of just one-dimensional person being good inside the gym and pathetic out the gym.
An existential crisis.
I couldn't get myself to do anything outside of the gym. Take action on building businesses, I just couldn't. It's just a mess. But anyway, I went to Monaco and I was appointed as CEO of the Princess Charlene Foundation, and I was invited on board. It was during the World Cup, the Soccer World Cup in South Africa, and I was invited on board a boat in the harbour with Prince Albert and Charlene, and my wife was with me. And the guy who owned the boat's name, I'll never forget, his name was Mike. And he strode up to me and he put his hand out and he says, "Hi, my name's Mike." And I said, "I'm also Mike." And when I was introduced to him, I recognized his energy.
Yeah?
I said, "That's the energy I have in the gym."
Oh, wow.
Now, how can this guy have that energy and he's not in the gym? What's the difference between him and me? So that was just, okay, and then I thought, right, that's it.
What a
There's got to be a solution. And that's when I really went out looking for that solution, and I found it. And the solution for me was that word that I spoke to you about earlier is responsibility.
How old were you when this was happening? Because I know we've gone from school days, then you went to the army, came out of the army. Because, I mean, this is still a long time that you've been searching. I mean, we talk about the first time you picked up the barbell at 13.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so I didn't understand any of that until the age of, as I said, I went through my first Mr. South Africa at the age of 20, competed again through that next decade, went overseas, came back. I was 36 when I placed top 10 in the world at the Mr. Universe in London.
Sure.
That was in 2002. I still hadn't found my answers.
36.
At 36.
I just want to, the reason I'm saying that is because I do feel there's so many people that for some reason we have this idea that by the time you're like 30, you're supposed to have your shit together. You're supposed to have the house and the wife or kids or the husband or whatever it is. But it's so important to hear you say, I was 36 and had no idea, because it's not too late to find that ability to respond to your life. And as you're saying, like everything that's happened to you has been part of the recipe that has got you to be the Mike that you are, who can now share with the people around you. Because I don't know if you of course you know this, that depression and anxiety, it used to be for a little segment of the population, but now it's this mental health, it's an absolute epidemic, I think, of a pandemic. I don't know what the correct term is, but youngsters.
Yeah, I think that social media and stuff like that have had a big impact on that. People comparing themselves to the unrealistic best foot forward that most people put on social media. My little girl now, she's 11. She just won. She's number 1 in the country for figure skating.
For real?
Yeah. She,
Congratulations.
Yeah, she placed top in the...
I mean, it makes sense to be living in tropical Durban and be amazing at figure skating.
My wife and my daughter live in Cape Town. I travel between Durban and Cape Town.
Oh, it is freezing in Cape Town. Okay, it's making more sense. Yeah. She's just in table view right now skating. Congratulations. That's amazing.
Thanks. So, also my wife, I have to give her a little bit of a plug. She was Dominique Donna. I don't know if you ever know. She was an elite triathlete.
Oh, wow.
For many, and one of Cape Town's top models.
Oh, wow.
In the late 1990s and early 2000s. So she's done a lot of triathlon in her life. So my little girl's got the genes for physicality. But anyway, going back to what I was talking about, the past is just a meaning.
Explain.
Whatever's happened in your past, it's a meaning that you've given to that incident, right?
Sure.
So let's say something's happened to you. The moment that thing happens to you, you give it a meaning. And what follows meaning? Emotion. Right? Meaning and emotion. Now, in everything that exists in the universe, you gave that incident one meaning. Is that the only possible meaning that you could give to that incident?
Wow.
Okay? So if the past's a meaning, the content of your past may not change, but the context of your past can change in a moment.
Well, I guess, if you look at someone in the middle of a divorce, you could look at it as a meaning. I'm being rejected. I'm not good enough. I'm being thrown away. Or I'm graduating. I'm being given freedom. I'm walking into a new part of my life. I mean, that's...
Exactly that. So my work with people is to help them to find what meaning they've given to the past, to incidents of the past, to change that meaning into an empowering meaning and change the emotion that results from that. Now, what most people do is they create that scenario in the past and they drag it every single time into the present where they feel it.
Sure.
That's called trauma.
Oh.
Now, when we go, Brent Slife Slife's a psychologist from America, and he said it's more accurate to say that we create the meaning of the past in the present than it is to say that the past is creating the meaning of the present.
Say that again?
It's more accurate to say that the present is causing the meaning of the past than it is to say that the past is creating the meaning of the present. You know how powerful that is?
It's deep, yeah.
Memory is not a recall, it's a reconstruction in the present.
Oh, stop.
Okay.
Oh, yo.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my job with people is to take them back to the meaning that they gave to the incidents of their lives, to help them find a more empowering meaning to whatever they went through, to change the emotion around that, okay, to change how they feel in the present. That's why I said to you earlier, I'm grateful for every single thing that's happened to me in my past because I've given it an empowering meaning. Everything. So my life is the result of my past. Everything.
May I ask, and I know that this is the work you do, so I know that this is not going to sound ugly, but I totally hear what you're saying. And it's easy to sit here when you're in a better space. Someone who's gone through a rape, someone whose child has been murdered. How do you say that sentence to that person or that parent? And this is not to put you on the spot because I totally hear what you're saying, but we have a society that says, yes, it's one thing to say, oh, I got divorced and now I'm looking, but it's another thing to sit with someone who's been raped and say, let's relook at the meaning.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll give you a beautiful example of that. There was this young girl who went for a walk with her father in Hillcrest with her dogs one day.
Oh, Jess.
What's her name again?
Ford.
Jessica Ford.
Jess Ford.
Jessica Ford. She was raped by 6 men in front of her father.
Yeah.
What did Jessica Ford go on to do? She went on to create
The Jess Ford Foundation.
the Jess Ford Foundation
Oh,
for raped and abused women.
Yeah.
That is how you take the incidents of the past and you empower yourself in the present. You know, if your past is disempowering you in the present, you can't even look to the future. You can't even create a vision for your life. Do you know it says in the Bible, the people without a vision will perish. Now, you won't die if you don't have a vision, but you'll die emotionally. And that's what happens. So if you're emotionally dead in the present, how can you even think about creating a powerful vision for your future?
Shit.
Now, in my PEAK acronym, the whole physiology part was what I learned, okay? Creating the physiology, that's the first part of it. Then that's the emotional part of it. Going back to your past, serving your, creating your past so it serves you in the present. Now you're powerful. So you've taken care of the physiology.
The action.
So the physiology is the foundation. The emotion is the part that empowers you so that you can get to the next part, which I couldn't do, which is to take action.
The action, yes, that makes so much sense.
There you go. And the last part, which is the K,
Knowledge, yeah.
is the knowledge. Not all action will take you to your results, but you'll learn something, right? You'll get knowledge. And knowledge or failure, most people frame failure as the most devastating thing in their lives. Most people, if you ask them how many times they tried, once.
Yeah.
But failure is your most richest data stream that you could ever hope for. It gives you all your answers. If you haven't failed, what do you do? I mean, if you fail, what do? You try again.
Try something different.
But if you haven't built the foundation, the physiology, the emotion, the action, you're not going to be able to even comprehend failure. You're going to it's just going to wipe you out.
With the way in which you're speaking, that and how you work, do you think that we would be able to avoid, I don't know how to say, because it's like the medical side of this, the medication side of this, because I don't actually know many people not in my very close knit group, but my external group, like the acquaintances. People are taking antidepressants or like Herbanols or all those kind of things, almost like in a proud thing. It's like, you open a bag and it's like, oh, there's a gum and my Herbanol.
Right.
Do you think, what is your take on this actually? I mean, do you think that they serve a purpose? They help you to get through a really hard space? Or
Okay, so I'm going to take a lot of flack for this because
love flack, go for it.
As I started out this conversation, I come from the responsibility rebellion. And I believe that if you're not being responsible by going back and changing and reframing your past and doing that work, then you're just putting a plaster on the problem. You're putting a pill on the problem. You're putting alcohol on the problem. You're putting dacha on the problem. You're putting all sorts of things because you don't want to go back and do the work. You don't want to feel that anymore.
And then it's a Band-Aid over a bullet hole and you don't.
You know this new therapy called MDMA therapy where
MDMA therapy.
Yeah, they give you mushrooms and everything. What are they doing? They're making you feel good in the present and then they're taking you back to the past to change its meaning.
Yeah.
Really? So you're in a good place because you change the past in light of how you're feeling in the present.
Do you think it would be possible to because a lot of people still need the external help. So let's say something traumatic's happened to me and I want to do this work. And Mark, I'm coming to you and I'm doing the work. I'm sitting with you and I'm doing my homework even. But right now I need something. Do you think it's possible to get that something naturally? Or does it have to be a chemical? Because people say, but the serotonin is done. Your brain needs the serotonin. You need the help. And that's why you need to take your A, B, C, or D. Do you feel like it can happen naturally?
Absolutely. You know, I'm going to take flack again for this, but they've proved that the serotonin the serotonin story that they give you for medication is negligible.
Really?
Yeah, it is. So, you know, I've had such phenomenal results. I can help somebody in one session with what I've discussed with you shift so quickly, far more than what they've been doing, putting a plaster on their situation through pills and medications and stuff like that, because now they're empowered to go out and affect the changes that I've helped them with. I mean, just our conversation here now, you can see where it goes wrong with people.
Definitely.
There's a famous psychiatrist from America. His name is David D. Burns. He wrote a book called Feeling Great. Now, he's a expert in cognitive behavioral therapy. He writes there that depression and anxiety are the world's oldest cons. Every time I have a patient in my office, I open that book and I say, there you go. When I'm trying to convince them that it's their responsibility. You know, when you relinquish that responsibility, you give your power away to the world. When you take back that responsibility, now you empower yourself to take the challenge on of change.
It has become almost something that people are proud of. I'm so stressed, I'm so anxious, I'm depressed. It has, and I don't talk about it lightly because like I said, and that's why I led with it, is because for the first time understanding what it felt like to feel depressed, which I couldn't grasp that feeling before, it was very real. The thoughts of, if someone said to me, you're not going to wake up tomorrow, I would have celebrated that. I really wanted to tap out. It felt very, very real to me, incredibly real. So real that I went on the antidepressants 2 weeks. Didn't like how it made me feel.
Right.
But it certainly felt like an actual thing, a real thing, because a lot of people, when you say the biggest con, some people might say, but are you saying it doesn't exist? Because it does exist. But
okay,
I think what you're
right,
saying...
So the label of that exists, but let's go back to your time there. Let's go back to how you felt in those times.
And do I have to pay for the session? Okay, I'm in.
What I want to do is I want to just show you your erroneous thinking.
Okay, yeah.
So you go back to that time. You gave those incidents that you were going through a meaning, right?
Absolutely.
Can you remember any of the meanings that you gave it?
I mean, I want to say that I'd put myself in a box of feeling rejected on all levels.
Okay, so rejection was your feeling.
Yeah, not
but
good
what
enough.
if I said to you that rejection is just redirection?
I know now, in hindsight, that you're 1,000% right.
Okay, so now you know. Did you go and sit with anybody and let them and talk to them during that time?
I did try, yes.
Okay, and you tried.
I mean, I'm saying I tried as in I was like doing phone conversations with a therapist.
Okay, and how did that go?
Good, I felt better after those.
Okay, so you were able to kind of like offload how you were feeling.
Definitely,
See, in those instances, it's important to be able to speak about those things, because a lot of people who are depressed, they allow their thoughts to just circulate in their own heads. But when you hear yourself speak, have you ever heard somebody say, "I can't believe I said that"?
Yes, yes, often.
Why? Because they've let those things go around in their heads and they haven't got them out. So it's important to go and just sit with somebody who's, I wouldn't sit with a family member because what do they try and do? Give you advice.
Exactly.
And that's the wrong thing.
They're too close
You
to
just
home.
need these. You need somebody to give you ears. In fact, listening is probably one of the most underrated skills in the world.
100%.
You know? So you just need to go and sit with somebody and ask them for their ears. You don't want their advice. That's why most men don't talk to their wives, because their wives start trying to give them solutions. They just want ears. That's
Do you
all.
believe in the power of journaling or writing down?
You go and look in my briefcase right now, you'll find my journal.
Okay.
Somebody says,
excellent.
why do you pay 300 Rand for an empty book? And I say, because when I finish that book, it's worth millions.
Sure.
Worth millions.
Because I do find that sometimes, and this is not a guy thing or a girl thing, I think there are just specific people who don't feel necessarily comfortable or somehow have grown up thinking that therapy was for wackos or, and you know, I'm using that word purposefully because it's like, it's so negative. And I'm also a journaler, but I feel like it's a way for you to have your ears and get your stuff out of that's swirling in your space, in your head.
Absolutely.
So that it's not just there. Because, I mean, if you share it down, often when you reread it, you do, just like you said now, you've given meaning to something. And when you put it down, you're able to maybe disassociate from it for a little bit.
See, the problem with most people in journaling is they ruminate when they journal. They talk about their problems. This has happened to me, and they ruminate on it. Instead of putting the solution down on their journal and saying, I remembered this incident happened to me in the past. This is the meaning I gave to it. What else could this mean to me? And really getting into those kind of conversations with yourself, rather than just ruminating on the problem all the time.
Sure.
You know, you said just now, I don't see myself as a counselor per se. I see myself as a perspective shifter.
Wow.
So, you know, if you and I were sitting here and there was a 6, there was a number drawn on this table here, and you were looking at it, it was a 6. And I turned that number around.
That's a 9.
Now it's a 9. It's the same problem, but now it's got more value.
Sure.
Okay, that's what perspective is. It's just giving you a different view of what you're looking at. Because we become so myopic with our own problems. We only see them from our own perspective. But when someone comes around and says, hey, you haven't looked at this like this, it can make the world of difference. And it's, you know, to me, that's what's important, to have your perspective shifted. You know, I obviously work with a lot of very, very successful people, and from all over the world. And one of my consistent questions to those kind of people is, do you challenge your own perspective? How often do you challenge your own perspective? Because we grow up being trained how to think, not consciously.
Yeah.
We grow up absorbing our parents' belief systems, our parents' worldviews, our parents' value systems, right? And we drag those through life because they worked for us when we were small. But now when you're 36, throwing a tantrum on a floor in the shop doesn't work anymore, you know?
And that's that whole idea of choosing the familiar hell over unfamiliar heaven, isn't it? Where you just go for what you used to.
You default into that, you know? And I always say maturity's got nothing to do with age. It's got everything to do with growing up and out of the beliefs that you were given as a child.
And, I mean, we talk about as an adult, but I mean, I think I was hearing you earlier talking about how the patients are getting a little bit, I call them patients, your guests are getting a little bit younger and younger. What's the word I'm looking for? Yes, the connection between our online presence and our social media and depression. How I mean, is the parallel just, you can't, you know, doubt that online is making us more depressed and more anxious? Or
I completely agree with that. I've had a lot of that because, you know, if you look at the young guys of today, you know, we used to have to put in the elbow grease to get anywhere. Now the expectation for young people is that they can become multimillionaires before the age of 25, and some do. So you get kids that are coming into companies and they're expecting to hit the CEO status within 3 years, and when they don't, their lives fall apart. You know, and then you get the young girls who are comparing themselves to these models, and they actually don't have insight into what their lives are really like.
Yeah, and they've never seen them in real life, so they're still looking at a literal filtered version, like an actually real filtered version of someone.
I mean, there was this AR model I don't know if you've seen that. She's on Instagram, an AR model. She's got over 300,000 followers, and she's not even real.
Yeah.
How do you compete with that? You know?
It is unbelievable. I mean, and at the same time, beside your filters and whatnot, going back to when you were your 13-year-old, you first picked up the barbell. What do you think the parallel between exercise and mental health and depression is? I mean, is exercise as important, do you think, to our depression, anxiety, happiness?
Okay. As you sit there now, if I had to look at you and you were depressed, how would you be sitting?
I mean,
What would your posture be like?
I feel like I want to go overboard and be like, I'd be really...
Well, go overboard.
Like,
Because okay. How would you be breathing?
Shallow.
Right. How would you be talking?
Slow and sad.
How would your face look like?
Still cute.
Wonderful.
No, I get what you're
so,
saying.
so every emotion that we feel has got an attached physiology. You just proved it.
Oh.
That's why we can walk into a room and say, what's the matter? Because the person's like this. So therefore, if I go into a gym and I've got this terrible physiology, now I go and start training, it changes everything. I'm looking up. When we're feeling, we're looking down. Now I'm looking up. I'm breathing differently. I'm using my body differently.
Wow.
No wonder my depression lifted. That's why I always say motion creates emotion.
Energy,
and emotion is the force of life. Okay? So in those moments when I was training, that's the reason why I was changing my physiology. It's part of what I learned, the lesson that I learned about physiology. Now when someone comes into my office and they sit there and they go, I'm so depressed and I just don't know why. Was it sit up, put your shoulders back, look up and start breathing differently.
Get your shit together, man.
You know?
Yeah.
You know, use yourself differently. Use your physiology differently. Anxiety's got its own attached physiology too. So all of these things are, all of these emotions that you feel, you can read them from a person's body. So if you want to change it, change your physiology. There's a cybernetic loop between your body and your mind. Change your body, your mind will change. It's been proven. In fact, Harvard University did a study where they took people and they put them into what we call power postures. So you stand up with your hands on your hips like Superman.
Exactly. We know this one.
Yeah.
Superman, Superwoman.
Correct. And therefore your whole physiology changes. You no longer feel how you did feel. All right? So I've got this triangle that I use. It's called the Triad of Power. That's my acronym or my word for it. The bottom of that is physiology because that's foundational. Change your physiology. That's the first part. The second part of changing how you feel is what you focus on, because focus equals feeling. Right.
Yeah.
So now, if you look at your life and the emotions you're feeling, you've changed your physiology. Now, what are you focusing on? Are you focusing? There's 3 focus patterns. Are you focusing on the present? Are you focusing on the past? Or are you focused on the future? Now, it depends where your challenges lie. Anxiety lives in the future. Depression lies in the past. Okay? Right? Okay. That's the first part. Then are you asking yourself, is this something I can control or I can't control in the situation? Now, most people, let's take load shedding, for example. Most people lose it.
Yeah.
Can you control it?
No.
So what's the point? And the last focus pattern is, am I grateful for what I've got or am I focused on what's missing? Now, when we focused on what's missing in life, what we can't control, and on the past,
Yeah.
that immediately, those 3 focus patterns take us into a death spiral of emotion, right?
Yeah.
Combined with it physiology. But there's one more part, and that's your thought patterns. And this is what trips up a lot of people. Let's talk a little bit about your thoughts. You know, I always say we can't stop thoughts from coming into our mind. For example, don't think of a pink elephant.
Yeah.
Right?
Pink elephant.
Right.
Pink elephant. Pink elephant.
So if we can't stop thoughts coming into our mind, we've got to decide what thoughts we're going to accept are true for us as human beings. Now, this is what trips so many people up in depression. They've gone through something. They're getting all these thoughts. I always say you've got this stream of thoughts going through your mind. You've got flowers and dead leaves. They keep picking the dead leaves.
Oh, wow.
Now, what follows thought? We said that earlier. Emotion.
Yeah.
Thought, emotion. Pick your dead leaves and feel the way you feel. We're speaking about your depression earlier. And I asked you, how true were those thoughts that you were thinking? Was there any other thought that you could have been thinking in that time?
Absolutely. Yes.
You know, that would have helped you to reframe how you were feeling or change the way you were feeling. Now we've got your physiology, we've got your focus patterns, and we've got your thought patterns. that'll revolutionize how you feel. So all of that was the missing part that I went on a hunt to find in my life.
I'm going to ask as well, if someone's come to you and then you're going to maybe, not the word prescribe, but what kind of ingredients would you, so like someone's listening right now and they're looking for something that's going to make them feel lighter without going and doing a ceremony somewhere in South America where they're going to go and do,
Right, yeah.
One of your plant ceremonies, etc. But you're at home and you're a bit nervous of a psychedelic or whatever, but you want to go and take something that's going to help you. I mean, because we've got the Remedy Greens under the Well I Am brand, but I mean, from your
Okay, so I haven't ever specifically sort of prescribed a neurotropic to anybody for a depression stroke anxiety disorder, or label, shall I put it.
Okay.
I haven't, because I just believe that as we've spent this discussion, it starts with you.
Yeah.
And, and if you want to go and do something additionally, I do believe that it can help you with focus, and it can help you, a lot of today's world is productivity has become something that is put aside for distraction.
Big time. Big time.
I mean, so if you want to achieve in your daily life, you need to become more focused. So there's nootropics for that and concentration. Wonderful.
Okay.
That's,
and that in essence will help your depression and anxiety because
I always say that progress equals happiness. And if you're just spinning your wheels, you're getting to the office and you're just not focused, things aren't going, you're not making the progress you want to make because you're just distracted all the time. Sure.
Flip, it's really amazing. I feel like more people need to be, well, not need to be, but I do just think we're falling into this thing, spend our time online, say we feel depressed, eat rubbish food. And someone once said to me, there's no such thing as junk food. There's junk and there's food. So, I mean, do you ever talk about diet with your clients?
Well, for sure, because blood sugar levels are so important when it comes to physiology. So if you're going to eat croissants for breakfast, your blood sugar is going to shoot up and drop right down below the norm, and you're going to feel listless and energyless. And then when you feel listless and energy, you drop your physiology, right? And when you drop your physiology, you can slip into patterns of depression. Sure. Some people don't even know why they're depressed.
Because your body's taking the shape of depression.
Correct.
Oh my gosh, yes. Mind blown.
Yes.
Michael, where have you been my whole life?
Well, that's why I advocate training for people, weight training, because it strengthens all the muscles that keep your body in a powerful physiology. People always say to me, Michael, you walk so upright and your posture's so good. It's because I've trained it that way, because I know how important that is
to take the
in
shape
emotion.
Of power.
Yeah. I can't afford to slip into patterns of depression and patterns of anxiety. I can't. Nobody can.
No one can.
Yeah. But when you've got the tools and you understand how to pull yourself out in an instant, I can pull people out in an instant because I know what their focus patterns are. I can identify their thoughts and I can change their physiology.
Jeez.
And
if someone watching this right now, I mean, I could talk to you for ages, but I know we got to wrap it up. So if someone's watching this right now and they would like to get hold of you, do you have an Instagram, a Facebook? How does someone...
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram at Michael Rod Official.
And it's double D, hey?
R-O double D.
Double D.
I sometimes say I'm a double...
You're a double D, say it. So you keep
your chest up. So you can get a hold of me on Instagram. You can get a hold of me on Facebook. My email is michael@michaelrod.com. My website's michaelrod.com, but it's down at the moment. It's busy getting revamped. So otherwise, you come visit me at my offices at Wellness Works at East Coast Radio House.
And is anyone too young to come?
No.
Okay.
Nobody's too young. Although I don't really like to work with children because they struggle with the whole concept of what we've spoken about today.
Oh, for sure.
But
like a 16-year-old.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
I guess a 16-year-old, they're a grown man or woman by then, isn't it?
Man or woman, for sure.
Mike, thank you so much. Really, really, that was amazing. And if you've been watching and you have any more comments or any questions, please feel free to just drop something in the comments section. We promise we will not just read, but reply to every single one of you. And if you have anything else you'd like for us to talk about, that's what we're here for. And you can always go on to www.welliam.co.za. And we do have the Remedy Greens there, which have got a lot of these natural assisters. They're there for you. They're little they're little therapists before you go and see.
And no doubt I'm going to try them as well.
Of course you are. You have to give us a review. Thank you so much. Bye.